Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming. I'm Dell and this is From the Depths Designer once again. And first of all, thanks for all the comments and on the previous video. It's nice to know that people still want to watch the videos, which is always good. So any other suggestions or how you'd like things to go on, please put in the comments. But for this episode, what I was thinking is that on our base, which is now in the campaign, it was primarily a base, very few if any defences on it, except for some simple weapons. So the next stage is to give it some defences. Now what I'd like to do is give it some drones. So that's why I've started some small ships as test beds. Now I'd like to look at maybe taking what we already have and taking this as a basis, because I like thinking about repurposing the enemy's ships, so rebuilding them, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. Now one key bit is at the beginning of the game, because I've built a ship with no defences or a base, I haven't got much time before the deep water guards going to attack, so whatever I designs then have to be fairly small so I can produce it in time. I did create a nice frigate type ship, but it was going to be about 50,000 resources. I don't think we're going to spawn that in time. So the plan is to build something around the maybe a couple of sizes around the 3,000 4,000 mark, somewhere in that area. So what we're going to do is take the starting rib. So this is the standard starting rib. As you can see, 200 blocks, only 1,700 resources, has no AI, some simple missiles, you know, nothing too flash. This was a quick little AI version I've got, so it's almost identical, just been given an AI with some detection and a little bit of metal. But what I'm thinking here is, if we go back in time, we need a little bit of defences, because what we're going to be up against is going to be medium. They're medium-ish sort of ships, and I would expect some, you know, nothing too heavy, a few cram cannons. So you know, if we get hit by a big cram, so be it. So we need to be a bit faster, hopefully dodge the cram cannons. But we're generally to be taking on vanguards, Kalmars, that type of, maybe the occasionally a marauder. But most of the big ships will be attacking the base, and the base has just got to defend itself. Whilst these are basically going to be gunships that have just got to do as much damage to the enemy, whilst the base is soaking the damage. This isn't the actual base, I'm going to use this as a platform as an example though. Okay, so we don't need some metal, but we can't go mad on vessels because we have to keep the block count down. So I'm going to start by just getting rid of a lot of things on this particular ship as a starting point. So yeah, I'm possibly going to armour up this ship as a starting point. Very much like, I'm trying to think of what it was now. What is it? The Virginia and possibly something like a monitor style ship with a big gun on it. And all of those were originally other wooden vessels that were clad effectively in armour or metal. Wrought iron at the time, I believe, was the system they used generally, and I'm thinking the same sort of thing, just cladding what we have here in a a different material, for want of a better word. So just clad it up so that it does the job, quite simply. So okay, what I'm doing. So what I'll do is, let me just give this a bit of a metal makeover, for want of a better word. So yeah, from memory, I think the let's see, was the monitor cladding of the Merrimack, or was it the Virginia was from the Merrimack? I remember one of them was from a Merrimack, which was a frigate that they captured or had, and then they made basically they covered it in metal and then put the big guns on it. So might do something like that, but I think we'll possibly build a bigger version of that. But at this second, I think I will just see if I can make this a little bit more armoured and see where we go. So back in a little while, once I have got the metal workers working on this ship. And after a little bit of placing, we've got a very simple. Now this is ugly. I mean, really ugly. But it is basically a metal skirt on a rib. In some ways, it reminds me of a Klingon, but here for some reason. But anyway, yes, very suitably cyberpunkery in some ways. We've just taken a ship and plated it in metal. So a couple of the bits in here is it's not going to have much detection equipment. It's going to have an intra-vehicle set and use the detection of the main base for firing at ships wherever possible, and that will be a commonality of all the drones. Also, it doesn't have an engine. It uses electric, and again, the electricity for resupply of that will be supplied by the base. And finally, we'll have a repair drone. It's got some repair bots on here, and we'll put a repair tentacle. I might just put it actually right in the middle there for no. There we go. So that they'll repair each other. So basically, they'll repair each other as they're going around, and they get new resources into their resource zones, from the base. So they're going to be, very droney in that respect, in that they will all just look after each other. So what I'll use this as a first base, and actually the cost hasn't been too bad. Only 2,100. It started at about 1,700, so only about 400 cost for all the metal. I've used a lot of slopes and angles rather than just big thick beams, allowing for the fact that I'm going against ships, or hopefully these will mainly be just having to defend themselves against small simple weapons or small cram cannons and small advanced guns, nothing massive. So I don't need thick 3 belts of armour, etc. These are going to be crunchy. If something really big comes in here, it will get destroyed. Right, so first ship, what are we going to be up against? Let's think about it. If we have and I'm thinking here, what we're going to do is each of the ships is going to be tasked with taking out a particular type of enemy in general. Now with this particular ship, we've got 2 choices. I would actually like to do a Virginia style. I'm thinking, what if we use some of the simple cannons through the side, and it gives broadsides small ships. I don't think that's be powerful enough. I have done some tests and they're okay against wood, but anything more than wood, and you know, they just they don't work. Simple as that. So choice number 2 is okay. Let's give this one a few missiles and make this basically an anti-air and also sort of mainly anti-air type of ship. So it's going to be firing guided missiles at some aerial and or largish sea targets. So let me just see about creating a missile system. How many blocks have we got? We've got 3 high, so we can either go for a turreted version, but what I'm thinking here is maybe not a vertical launch, but an ejector horizontal launch, which may not make sense, but let me just test something out and see if it works, and I will be back in a minute. And okay, a little experiment later, bit of an explosion, but what I found is you can, using an ejector on a missile, we can eject our missiles straight up through a block. So then the blocks act as a protection in case we get any damage coming up. But if we got a laser aims at something and then we fire, our missiles eject up and then they should aim towards where our missile is pointed. Excellent, which could be an aerial craft or a ship. That will be good. So that's number 1. Now number 2, I'm gonna use I think I'm gonna try something with one of the simple weapons. Some of them will do a bit of damage to the enemy, because that's what you want to do, and that would be good against possibly aircraft at short range. Now what that smacks to me of, and we'll need to let's put some blocks in there, is what shall we go with? Yes, I know what we're going to go with. Let's just get a cup. We're going to need a few blocks. We're going to need a weapon controller, say about there, with a let's see how this will work. It's going to be an aerial come close range weapon. And yes, I'm just going to build it straight on the top of that 2-axis turret. Come on. And then we'll put let's see, a metal block on top of that. Now, what if we go with some lasers? I'm thinking either lasers or autocannons. On this ship, we've already got the laser here, so why don't we make this a laser ship? Yeah, that sort of makes sense. Right, we'll put a little bit of protection in here, just in case we get attacked. Now, these lasers, good thing about lasers is they've got a very good range, but we will limit their range. It's one thing I haven't put on the back is a weapon controller. I knew there was something that I missed, but we'll make their no minimum range. We'll make their range though something like about 2,000, I think. And altitude, we want things that are above the water generally. There we go. What else do I need here? Let's put a little bit of protection on the side. And a little come on, I haven't done my mirror line. There we go, that'll be easier if I do the mirror line like that, and just a little bit on the rear just to finish it off. There we go. So I think all I need to do is put a weapon controller on the rear, and I think we are now up and running with this particular ship. We can give it a quick little test against something, I think, just to see what it's like. if I just take all the other ships out of play for the moment, just so that not. Well, no, we'll leave the main base in play, because that's basically going to take all of the damage whilst these deals with the enemy. So let's see what happens. I'll take it myself off with something small. Let's start with something like a vanguard, just as a starting point. All these missiles gonna turn around, and unfortunately it's trying to go through. That's not a good starting point. The lasers are blowing our own ship up, our own base up, but at least we know they worked. Let's try it again. To come off the wobbly ship, and it is firing back. Are we hitting it? Now we are. So it's got a limit of about 400 on those lasers, so we'll have to adjust the lasers to bring them down to about 450 or so, which is fine. The missiles have a much longer range and are doing some damage. That's good. Okay, just adjust those, and then we can have a look at the next. We'll try one more vessel maybe. And so let's see what it's like against something like an Atlas. See if those missiles will target an air target sufficiently. Allowing for the fact we would have, it seems to be okay. We would ideally have 3 or 4, well, maybe 2 of these. And now the missile lasers are starting to fire as well. Not great accuracy, but maybe it will get a little better. Possibly I can change the aiming. On here, I didn't do anything on this beforehand, so I'll give the bearing a little longer to work out. There we go, that might just help a little bit. Bad bit about laser, they keep on firing even when the enemy has stopped aiming at the target, which is not a good thing. But okay, that is working. It is attacking the Atlas. Now the lasers, I would, if it gets attacked, I think the lasers would obviously get removed from the vessel, which is fine. But the majority of the ship, we're getting some shots coming in at it. Let's see how they do against the cram cannons. Well, it's taken the Atlas down anyway. Didn't actually get a chance to test it against the cram cannons to see what its defences are like. Well, we'll just have to go with hopefully they're okay. And after a little bit of working around with an idea, I thought, why not make just put some basic cannons, simple cannons and auto cannons on the ship. So this is very much a sort of Virginia type of system. Now it's got a bit open on the back here, so I think I will just give that a little bit of armour, just to stop things that are coming down, but not too much. There'll be about half the cost of a beam. Give it a little bit of armour. So we've got some auto cannons and some basic cannons. Instead of trying getting close, so let's just see how that does against something simple. It's going to be against ships, obviously. So we'll give it a vanguard. Well, the auto cannons are firing, and we get normal cannons as well. Always fun to see. Is it turning itself over? Not quite. The main ship is repairing it as well, so which is always good, even if it gets attacked. And it's it's ripping apart the Vanguard, and it hasn't been hit yet. It's not very stable by the looks of it. That the broadside guns. Oh, it's taken a little bit of damage. but it's surviving because it's basically being repaired when needed. Okay, it's not perfect by any stretch of the mean. A bit low in the water, and it's turning. It's not very level when turning. Certainly, that's just. It's very top heavy. Not a tremendous lot. Some of it's just the recoil of the gun's fine, but that's quite like that. Let's see something a little bit bigger, not too big, but something a little bit bigger. What about a Kalmar? Now, normally it's not going to be on his own. This would be a somewhat more problematic enemy. Yes, their guns are getting through, although that did bounce. Look, some of those shells are bouncing. So that's good. The armour is working. Yeah, this is a little big for it on its own. How about if I bring in the other two and bring them in? Make sure everything's on combat. And can they between them take on the Kalmar? Here's some of the laser missiles. For some reason they're aiming at that bit at the top there. Yep, they're okay. Not give them a few more of these and they could take on something a little bit bigger, I reckon. That's cool. And so this little thing is only how many points is it? It's only 3,300, so not much more. And it's good fun. Looks like it's going to be able to hold up to a little bit of of damage. I think it might be better getting a little closer. Whoops. So, okay, we're going to build one more ship, I think. A slightly larger ship, and not based upon the starting rib. So we'll quickly do that. Oh, I just got hit. So we've got a few smaller ships in the fleet now. That we can bring in to act as little escorts. Now I'm going to build something a little bigger. They're both of the ships I've built are around the 3,300 block. So really I want to be looking at something that's around up to 10. Let's say 8, 9 is ideal. And also I'm going to go through a little bit of thought of how to build a ship, because I know in the past, I don't know about recently, people have said, well, yeah, how do you build your ships? How do you think about it? And which is a fair question in I think. So personally, everyone has their own way of building ships. What I'd like to do first of all is visualize what I'd like to have. One easy way is to base it upon a historical ship, but the other way is just to think of the primary assets and build your ship and see what happens after that. Primary assets are going to be weaponry. Now, if you've got in mind, like we have here, I've got in mind a particular weaponry set, that's going to define a lot of your ship. Next, you've got to think about speed. Is your ship design aiming to be a high-speed ship? Then armour. Now, all of these factors all together define how much space, how much power, how many blocks your ship. And you can't have everything. Everything is a compromise. Now, for this particular ship we're talking about here as an example, the first priority is going to be the weaponry. We've got the idea of having like a monitor style ship, so it's going to have a couple of big cram cannons. So they're going to be the primary function. The second bit is going to be armour. I want this to be able to stand up against ships, medium-sized deep water guard ships, against some of their cram cannons. So it needs to have some sort of defensive armour, at least, of a reasonable size. So that's going to take up quite a few blocks and make it very heavy, and speed is not going to be important on this, so that means I haven't got to worry about making it overly streamlined or lots of power going to lots of engines, etc. So normally if you want speed, you have to make it sleek, which then means your weaponry's you're more limited on the weaponry you can have, etc. So also trying to make it fast means you can't put too much armor, because that'll make it too heavy. So the next thing I tend to do is place the weaponry down, at least give me an idea. So what we're going to build is a reasonable size turret, and we'll use one of the new 3-meter turrets, I think. It's going to be quite resource heavy, but it means there's very little chance of it getting popped by something. And we don't have 2 guns. Let's have a think. Now we're not going to go too high here. I think the height of the hull, I'm making this wide. This hull is going to be fairly wide, I think, so that it, yeah, we'll put them in there instead, I think. Yeah, fairly wide so that it can, it's unlikely to roll over when we start firing the bloody great big guns we're going to put onto this. Again, that is a consideration you have to take into effect with your weaponry. If you put very big weapons on your ship, expect them to create lots of recoil, which can be bad. So okay, that's so I'm laying this out here so I can get a rough idea of where my deck is going to be. Okay, so that's going to be roughly the position by the looks of it. Let me just finish off this bit here. You also notice I tend to move between keyboard and mouse building. I've always done that. It's not a matter that one is faster than the other. I just find it more convenient at times to use mouse movement, and sometimes I like, it is more convenient to use the S3 and that type of building. They both have they're both got pluses and minuses when you're using them, in my view. Cram cannons then. I'm not a brilliant person at making these cram cannons, and I think what we're going to aim for is a couple of very powerful, not necessarily accurate, but fairly high gauge. They haven't got fire too often, but lots of HE and lots of armor piercing, because they'll be shooting at mainly larger vessels, I think, in general. So what we're going to need, let's see, how can we lay these out? Now, one way is to set metal at the very beginning, because it's going to be a fairly metal heavy. Put that there to act as a center strut that everything's going to get built upon. Then we put some cram cannon connectors. Let's go to mirror image. And we'll possibly just put our firing pieces straight on the top of there. Cool. And we'll maybe how big's this turret gonna be? Let's say, yeah, somewhere in that region. That's the space I have to work with, I think. So next we need some barrels, I think, on this cram cannons. Won't use the we'll use the heavy barrels because they are there. They are designed to withstand damage, and this is all about going to be about withstanding damage. this particular ship. And some more. Now we're not gonna go mad with the barrel. I think that will be enough. So it's not gonna be massively. It's not got very much azimuth on that. Might need a motor drive, I think. In about there. Let's try that. What's that motor drive give me? That's giving it 11%. Okay, let's change that to an elevation barrel instead. %, and we'll put a motor drive in there. So the elevation mainly gives us elevation, obviously, and the elevation barrel gives us mainly elevation, but reduces the azimuth, and the motor drive just generally increases the sizes. So okay, we'll go with that for the moment. Maybe one more elevation, 45 degrees. Okay, that's going to give us the maximum possible range for this gun at the moment, because it can go to 45 degrees. Okay, next we'll need to increase the gauge a little bit. Now we can do this a number of ways. Now I'm going to go forward because the gauges have very good armor. You can effectively use these as a bit of frontal armor for your weapons. So we can go there. Now I can, let's go for a corner. So it goes in there, and then we put a metal block in there, and that'll look quite nice. So yes, see, a metal block has an armor value of 15, and those gauges, chrome cannon, where are we? The gauge, that corner one I just put in there, has armor of 15 as well, so that's good. Now what's the size of those cannons? So they are 571. Oh, I think we can go bigger than that. I think we're let's go. I want some ludicrous size, I think. Yes, that looks good. I think the recoil is a little high on this at the moment, but hey ho. In for a penny, in for a pound. We will just finish off the rear, so it's the same, almost the same as the front. Oops, that isn't quite right there. That looks better. Better put them, I want to make them look roughly symmetrical. We'll the turret, and I'll put some of the, I need to put some ammo and armor down here. The deck we might have, we'll see how we'll put some armor down at this level, and then we've got to put some loaders, plenty of loaders and other parts down here for the actual gun. So I'll be back once I've had a little bit of a play with the cannon. And welcome back to what has become a bit bigger vehicle than possibly I originally intended, and it's a little bit self-supporting, but it's got some very big guns on it. Don't know how effective these guns will be yet, haven't tested them, but it looks reasonable. It's a little expensive, 13,000, not the 10,000 I was hoping, but hey ho, maybe we won't need so many of them. Now, it's a lot of metal, using some bits like angles to reduce the actual cost a little bit. It has a couple of gas engines in there, just some simple ones, nothing too hyper efficient. They're just to provide some low revving power if need be. Even though this is a drone, it is fully... Whoops, I just noticed something which is not right. There's no air pump in there. I need to get an air pump going. Bear with me 1 second. Although it is a drone, it is fully, just about fully walkable around within reason. So we can go through here, and we have the gun area. Although it is a little bit difficult to get through to the front section. We can get through. And in here we have, well, in here is actually the ammo storage. And that's about it really. There is not much else to this ship, except for the very big gun, an engine, and the AI, which is behind the stairs. And you can get out onto the deck. Oops, let me just go down a little bit further. There we go. Out, and we're out on the deck. So very monitorish, as you know the name and the idea was, in that it's very low on the water. Let's find out where I am. Bear with me 1 second. That isn't where I wanted to be. That's where I want to be. See, it's fairly low freeboard, and the big gun. So let's just see how it's going to perform. I haven't done any combat testing with this at all yet, so let's just see. Run some basic tests and see how it's done perform. Well, I had to make a little change there for the AI to do with, I think, the failsafe. So let's give that another go. Let's pull in something like the Calmer. Let's just see how far this ship can go. We'll come off the... So he's not very fast, but... yeah, they're doing okay. Let's see a few more shots. Doesn't shoot very many shots, but at the same time doesn't take much damage by the looks of it. Let's see when he gets hit. It's difficult to see with that thing. Yeah, he's taking a few hits, but it's getting repaired fairly quickly. And he's certainly doing some damage to here when they hit. Not too bad. They're not, as I say, I'm not a great cram cannon designer. Potentially they could be a bit better on the cram cannons. But he won't be on his own. He will be with the other other ships, so potentially he will let's just reduce the, there we go. So potentially he will be supported by the other ships when taken on. He's done that okay. Right, let's just try and see a little bit bigger ship. Well, it looks like he's got a reasonable rate of fire. Is doing damage against something a little bit bigger like this River Home. Accuracy isn't too bad at all. I think that range as well is quite good. 400, you know, for 500. It's enough to keep his accuracy within reason. Now he's actually having some problems with ammo now. Let me just see if Um,
Receiving. Listening.
That's better. I hadn't put him into the resource group, the correct resource group, so he wasn't getting ammo resupplied from the main vessel. So now that is happening. He can continue to fire. And his ammo and power is staying quite nicely high, which is just perfect, and he's taken out the river home. Okay, excellent. So I think that's another successful ship, a little bit bigger, but we might only bring one of those in compared to a few of the others, and it is hopefully just designed to go against the larger ships. So next time you see these, they will be in the campaign ready to go up against our next, well, the first enemies that the Deepwater Guard will send against us. So yeah, that will be the next video, which will be within a day or so, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Anyway, if you've got any good ideas for better names for these ships, or another idea of how to use them, please write them down in the comments, and I will try and name them as I spawn them, depending on, or if people can come up with a class of names is what would be a better idea. So a theme for naming of ships would be really helpful, because sometimes I'm not that inventive with names. I just tend to go with the basics. Anyway, until next time, keep playing and have fun.